Right, welcome to this session about Codegen. Hello, David. Some of you may have seen a few years ago a presentation that I did about this as well, but I remember I hardly got through the technological aspects of it, and I would have needed 2 hours. So today I'm going to focus more on what you can do with it rather than how it works. All right. But first of all, I would like to right, for the record, I'm a developer, and I can be very particular about how I like my code. Right, I have a particular way of organizing my code. You guys probably have this have the same thing, and I don't work normally. My day-to-day work is not that someone hands me a completely spec'd out thing that has to be made, but rather I also do the consultancy at the same time with the client. Client comes with some requests for me saying, well, you know, I want to add a way in which we can track maintenance for my products, for instance, but I have to be able to attribute it to employees, and I have to keep track of whether the maintenance has been done. You know, that's my brief, so I have to spec it out myself and start working on it. And usually it's an iterative cycle. You start somewhere, you make something, the client looks at it, it's like, yeah, okay, but actually now I want to see what the status is of ordering. It's like, okay, well, I already thought about that, and so we can make something for that. And the other thing I think that that may differ from my side and your side is I really like to just first model the situation of what the client is after. I'm continuously thinking about, okay, what's the object here, right? What are the objects that we're talking about, and how do they relate? And in that sense, I spend quite a bit of time, or you know, the first step would be just to go to the database and say, okay, I'm going to need companies, because that's what we're dealing with. I'm going to need products, and etc. So, in a sense, I know some people will, you know, advocate a method where no, you just go from the UI, and then everything, you know, will distill from down there. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not completely disregarding the UI. I do have a kind of a mental image of what the UI should look like for them, but usually it's something that approaches from both ends, and then the business later just has to figure it out. But I would say that the database schema is the one that is just foundational always in all of the development. It's what you, like in the beginning, is very fluid, and then begins to solidify quite quickly in those iterative cycles, and it's then the UI that becomes more fluid as we go along. So, in conclusion, I would say I work data first and not code first. And so one of the things I've been very allergic to is any kind of solution, ORM, that promises like, oh, well, you just tell me what you want to program, I'll do that for you in the database, right? And certainly entity frameworks had that, that was the selling point of entity frameworks in the beginning. It's like, oh, you just type your code, then I'll do the change scripts for you to the database. And it also didn't work in the whole DNN sphere. So that was also like a non-starter. So when we started with DNN, of course we had Codesmith, right, back in the day. Who remembers Codesmith here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So that was a tool that basically took web forms templating, and you could, with web forms, you could create, you know, a definition of like, okay, you could loop over columns of a table, right? You would point it to a database, and it would get a schema from that database, and then you can iterate over it and generate code. And there were, interestingly enough, even like Codesmith itself, the project published DNN templates back in the day on their website. You could download a zip file with templates made by, I can't remember, someone like probably Michael Washington to create code for us. It had the schema helper and web form based templating. Now, the thing is, that project has, first of all, they did, it was free in the beginning, and then all of a sudden it was not free anymore. And that's a sure way to get most of us to disappear. And secondly, it remained on web forms, which was not my daily kind of way to template stuff. So I was looking for a way out, but still for something similar, to just generate code for me. Every time I would make a change to the schema in a database because the client has something new or a new desire, just press the button, I just have my code ready and have my objects ready in my code. And because I prefer to rather spend, let's say, a whole week coding a tool rather than spend a couple of days of just doing repetitive coding, yeah, off I took. And I wanted it to be razor templates. I want to be able to tweak how the database is parsed, run it like a console app, so I can go like, tick, and get me a new copy of the code, and the ability to automate certain patterns. So, for instance, one of those I'll name is I always have my tables in plural and then the objects in singular. I don't know how that is for you. Your mileage may vary, but companies, company, right? What I found was there are DLLs you can get from NuGet under the banner SMO, SQL Management Objects, which allow you to go to an SQL server and get all the details of a database, the tables, the views, the stored procedures, the views, etc., and get them into your code. And there was a project called Razorlight, which allows to just get a Razor page, and you don't need to be in a website or anything, but just in a console app you could use that, get a Razor page, point it to an object, and go like, boom, you do your magic, and then it would template, right, it would run the Razor template. Which is all I needed. So, in DB parsing, like, what I do expect is that, of course, in a module, I would always prefix my module with a certain string to make sure that that's all like separate from the rest of the tables of DNN. If I have a view, I will match the names. So I would have a, my module dash companies as a table, and then view underscore my module dash underscore companies as the view over that table. When they're matched, for me, they in my code always they inherit from each other. So that company, when it's drawn out, are drawn out from the view, and when you update, you update, of course, to the table. All right, let's just have a look at. To make sure I check out the right branch and code. All right, just a fresh start here. So the project we've got running is a core library with an MVC module on the front end. Currently, of course, nothing is really coming out other than the text that I put in this view here, index, boom, there you are. And there's a div here that is part of my boilerplate template set up to hook in React stuff. So, first I want to create those tables. So, for argument's sake, let's assume we've identified that in our project we've got 3 objects here. I'm just going to run that. God, bloody hell. Ah, did I? The closing brackets are not. Great. I didn't copy those out. Thank you. All right. Let's do the second one. All right. Okay. So, 3. No, thank you. That's fine. And this can collapse, and we can focus more on this bit. And let's refresh this, and go to where I have my table. So I have 3 tables. One it concerns the entity companies. Sorry, that was not the view I was looking for. Tied to a portal, and company name, some details about that company, plus the audit fields that we have in DNN. Right, everyone familiar with the audit fields, I guess, here. So it is how I typically would set up my first table. You know, we're dealing with companies. The companies are accessible from wherever within the portal, so they go into we have a portal ID. Then the companies have products. Those products are tied to that company, of course, and they have a product model ID, like they are A something, and then have a serial number, and they're in a particular location, and they might expire at a certain date. Right? Let's say the brief concerns that we're trying to track products and when they expire, and make sure we can get some feedback on that on the screen. And product models have nothing more than just a model name, right? And now the first thing, like when the Codegen project, which you will find here, right, is under the name of bringtomind.codegen.cli, is a .NET tool, which you can run by just typing Codegen. The Codegen file itself is a settings file in your solution. So when you go to your code, let's go to my code here. I have a Codegen file. Why do I open this in Visual Studio Code? It's a bit easier. Open with code. And it has a number of parameters. It has a starting point, the first entry point, let's say, of where it will start generating templates. It has an output directory where you want everything that's generated to be output. You have your org name, your module name. You've got your root namespace, which is also a parameter you often want in your generation code. And but most importantly, you have your module object qualifier. In our case, that's demo module with an underscore. So everything that is preceded by that in the SQL database apparently belongs to what we're trying to find. So if we run the Codegen here, let's just start this up. It will start parsing the database, checking the tables. It will read those tables, look for anything, check for views, checks for stored procedures, and start generating those templates. So the templates are currently in this project here, and they are taken from the core project on GitHub. So when you go to this and you go to the there's no link here to the source repository. There it is. There we go. All right. You'll find the default templates here on this page on GitHub, and these default templates I tweak to correspond to exactly how I would prefer my code to be, and the purpose of the demo is actually to show what that looks like, and then hopefully, you know, from there you will see like, okay, that corresponds roughly to, you know, either that's the way I work or I would tweak them differently, but those templates will provide you some a good starting point, I think. And so the template we're starting with is called main, because you can only start always with one template. That's the entry point. But every template can actually start generating from other templates and start outputting into a directory. So this one, for instance, the main one, it says for every object definition in the objects that I found, so in this case companies, product models, and products, I want to generate the following. I want to generate a controller, and I will put it under controllers, and I will use the plural name, etc. And I feed it in that object definition. I want to have, in case I have I have one with link tables, it will parse that out. I will have that. I will want to generate a repository. I will if it's only with a table, I will generate this template. If it's a table and a view, in other words, if it's also found a view called companies, then it will match those, and it will generate a different templates for me. All this is passed out. And when it's done generating, what we get in the out directory here is a whole bunch of files. So if I have the company, I'll have the company declaration. Where is it? Company declaration, here we go. Set to the table name, demo module companies, and scope to portal ID, because it found the portal ID column in the table. It's like, oh, well, that's a scope. So I'll put that into the scope for like anyone unfamiliar with Petapoco here? No, you all know Petapoco. So you know what the scope does, right? You can do a get by scope method in your repository to get then all companies from a portal. And to that I can use directly then in the project. So let's
define the plural and singular names.
So the plural and singular names are within the Codegen program. There is I use a library, pluralize or something,
okay, so
something like that.
Take a Dutch name, it goes so.
It would be a nice test. I don't know if it's multilingual, but I've been surprised at how well it does the English ones, because sometimes English has really weird plural endings. And
so it just takes your table name and then process it to that text and stuff. And
Yeah.
name company is company.
Exactly. It takes off, in case anyone has used it, the object qualifier, and then it takes up that module object qualifier, and then it says, okay, that's the word, so companies. And of course, in my old code, it would have been companies, and then it would become company with IE at the end.
Yeah.
But luckily, it knows how to reduce that to company with a Y at the end. Yeah, that's... All right. One other thing I do, I use Araxis merge. Who uses other, like, what are the merge tools you guys use?
I use the one included in the Git client.
Okay, and the Git client.
So you have source tree, I use fork.
Right. Okay. You use the command line. Okay. No, when I was talking about merge tool, I meant that, you know, I would run this this code. Let me just delete everything that's in here in the out directory, and go to regenerate. If I regenerate, there you go. Now it's in a batch file, right? I will just run Codegen and then fire up my merge tool to merge the output with what is in the core module project. And currently, it's giving me an error of some sort.
You were asking about merge tool.
Yes. Yes.
Win merge.
Oh, okay. Win merge. There you go.
Sorry. Yeah, it can be.
All right. Why is it conking out? Right. Demagogues are not having any of this. That is not a good sign. That is not a good sign. What happened here? Right. Do not spend more time on that. I'm going to check out this bit. Yes. Yeah, there you go. Off we go. What it would look like after merge is that I would have now these with a declaration that we just saw, right? With the table name, there's a primary key, company ID, which auto increments. It's under data contract, and it has a scope. And the properties are parsed out and put here. I've even gone so far as to implement the old-fashioned hydratable and property access. Actually, hydratable, of course, never used anymore, but yeah. But the property access code as well, and template that out. That's what we did with the old Codesmith templates as well. And same thing for this, and then for a repository, you would have a repository pattern, and you know, if you get companies, it's scoped by portal ID, and you get it by the portal ID. So now, if you want a list of companies, and let's just have a look here. All right, check out. I can go to the view. I'll say, okay, well, for every company in Get Companies, I should be able to get now a company name. And I haven't got any data in this yet, so I'll add that right now. While I do this, I'm going to quickly get some data to fill into this. Yeah.
getting the data, is that generated by Codegen?
Yeah. So so for this one, for instance, actually no. So this method in the repository is a Petapoco repository method. So it's Petapoco that creates the SQL to get it from the database, and that's based on the fact that the company uses is labeled with a table name. Right? And so as soon as it sees that it needs to get the repository for type company, it knows it has to deal with that table. If you trace it, it makes the. There we go. We're already done building. I need to refresh. It takes me too much time to figure out now. But if you trace it, sometimes you see what shape SQL Petapoco makes out of its requests. But Petapoco takes care of the SQL generation for these kinds of requests, right? By scope.
It's not a scope procedure. It's just an SQL.
It's just an SQL, yeah. It will say, give me back all the companies from this table where portal ID equals, and then it feeds in the portal ID. That's what the SQL does. All right. So next step, next step is to add the views and to add the foreign keys as well to these tables. So the foreign keys will allow me to then detect like which object depends on which object in what way. So if we go to the create a database diagram, now that thing is no longer, doesn't have any keys anymore. Good. Thank you. All right, and I want the companies, of course, depend on the portal ID. All right, there you go. There you go. Yep, that's good. And in case we delete the portal, I will want all the companies to be removed. The products depend on the company. Sorry? Okay, sorry. Haven't said primary keys, yes. Yeah. Let's first go to that. Demo, right, companies, design. Company ID, of course, is the primary key, and it is set to have a identity spec, yes. And that should be fine. And the product models, design, here we go, that is the primary key, and it's also an auto. Yeah, that one is good. And go on. Products, similarly. It's a primary key. Okay. Now, will it work now? And it depends on the product model ID. Something like that. All right. So now I've linked the data up, and I want to generate some views as well to be able to generate the right shape of data when it comes out. So I'm also not going to add a few procedures, and I'll just do that quickly. Run this through. Yes. Oh, you do not. Right. Companies. That one. Just a procedure. Ah, did I do that? Right. A couple of these I'll just. So now for the views, if I go to the views, you will you would see that I have that company view that does a what does it do? It draws in all the columns from the company table and selects the number of products that that they have. And similarly for instance, products, I would like to have in the view of products, there we go, alter to this, there we go. I get all the products, but I also draw out the model name of the product, of course, that I will need in the front end, and then like the company name and address, for instance. So I have one view over that data. If I just test it, that should come out just fine, right? We see all the records being filled in. All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to have to skip a couple of steps, so I will skip to this bit. Check out. Yes. Apply. And see the results immediately in the code generation. So what the right now, if I rebuild this solution, just step through the generated code. And start that one already. Here we go. So let's have a look how that has changed things. So now what I've done is I've detected that there is a view called companies, which draws out all the columns from the table. So I've created an object called company base, which points to the table, and an object called company, which points to the view in the table name. In Petapoker, you can do this. You can set table name, but then give it the name of a view, and then all of its SQL generation will then point to the view. Obviously, if you're trying to insert or update to a view, you will get an error back, but all the data retrieval mechanisms work just fine. And then what will happen is that in your front end, in your view, when I draw out, for instance, every product in Get Products by Portal, because now I am in a repository for the product repository, I've detected that there is a foreign key to the company table. Right? I know that you can, if there's a foreign key from the products to the companies, I know that I should be able to draw out products by that company ID. So I just feed in a company ID for Get Products by Company, and here it just generated the SQL actually inside of the Petapoker method.
If you have some stored procedure for special operations,
yeah. And so for the stored procedures, I collect them all in one class, with a comment of the actual, stored procedure itself, so that you can trace any changes you've made to it as well. It makes it a bit easier. And I can then, for instance, I created a stored procedure here to get the products by portal, for instance, right? So I would execute a query, get products by portal. It detected that the whole product actually would come out, that the view of the products was being used, which is here, right? Select p.star from this view. So it's like, okay, well, that must be an I enumerable of the product that comes out. It sometimes gets it wrong, but most of the times it gets it right. And it's just like a quick manual check to see where if the storage procedures came out right. But then very quickly, you could go into your view. I think that's what is actually happening here. It gets it there. Get products by portal ID, and you will actually get all of these out then in your thing. And here I've actually made a click through to a page for the company where it auto-generated also the its code to go from, okay, give me all the products by company and just put them in a table with a few columns coming out. So in my daily practice, I would tweak the data model, run that code, make sure the core library is updated that way, and check for any changes on that end. That's the thing. And as a bonus, what it does, it also generates in the are the actual scripts for your model. For your module, so it will detect all the objects that you've had. The SMO objects are able to generate proper SQL install scripts. Can someone close the door, maybe behind, like thanks. So it will this stuff is. I inject the database owner an object qualifier in these scripts already, and generate my upgrade script, so that for most intent purposes for my module development, I always know that I have my scripts up to date and working. Well, with the 15 minutes that we lost at the beginning getting started. I'm very sorry I had to rush through that end, but thank you. It's 55 past. I have to shut down and give the floor to the next speaker here. So, is there any questions?
Is there any way to just make this install, upgrade, and install scripts without generating all the code you show us before?
Yeah. If you just point it to an empty main template, it would just like, okay, well, that's a main template. I did my work. Nothing more to do. If I take out here, I'll show you. Wait, I close that one down here. That main template where it starts. So my templates, main, right? If I would take out all of this and I would run it here. Let's have a look. And I would just clear out what is in out, right? Then it won't generate anything. And it will just, like, the generation will be really, really fast. And then it will generate the SQL scripts. So now, if I go back to All right, I will close this one down and go to out. And now I just have scripts. It's the only thing I have in that directory. No more code generated, just those scripts. You know that if you include upgrade.sql data provider in your module scripts, that one is run upon every single time that it's installed, regardless of whether you have an upgrade script for that specific version. So it always runs. Upgrade.sql data provider. After any version scripts, it will always run upgrade. That's important to.
That's like in DNN.
Yeah, that's DNN.
Search it for upgrade.
Yeah, it searches for, if it finds it, it will run it at the end of the. That's very important because that's where I keep all my stored procedures and views, etc., and I will regenerate them every time that I install modules.